We spent the last 2 class days learning basic skills like adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions, right? The reason I taught you that, the reason I showed you how to do all those things, you remember what I told you? We've got to solve equations. And we've got to know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide just expressions before we can get to equations. So we spent 2 days on that so that now we can feel comfortable solving equations. Okay? How do you think we're going to go about solving an equation that is just 2 fractions set equal to each other? You guys tried to do it the other day when I said, how do you multiply fractions?
We do
Cross multiply, right? You tried to do it when we were multiplying fractions, but remember at that time I said, is it 2 fractions set equal to each other? If it's not, we can't cross multiply. Okay? Well, now it's 2 fractions set equal to each other, so guess what we're going to do? Cross multiply. Okay? So I have 3 times 6x equals 8 times x plus 5. Everybody okay with that? So let's simplify this. What is 3 times 6x? 18x. And what do I do with the 8? So, you know, the last couple days we've said, don't distribute, don't distribute. We want to have it all factored so we can simplify if we need to. Except we're solving now, right? So if we're solving, don't we need to distribute? Yes. Okay? So distribute, 8x plus 40. Now, I don't know about you, but this equation looks a whole lot easier to solve than this. But isn't it the same? Like, I got this from this, right? So as long as I know how to get from here to here, I'm great, right? So how do I solve this? What do I do?
minus 8, minus 40.
It would help if I wrote the right thing.
Yeah.
What did I miss? An x. Can we fix that real quick?
Yeah.
Thank you. Minus 8x is correct. What do I have left on this left-hand side? 10x equals 40. So how do I solve for x? Divide by 10. What does x equal? 4. Is it right? Let's see. 3 over 9, right? 4 plus 5 is 9. Equals 8 over 6 times 4. 24. What does 3 over 9 simplify to? 1 over 3. What does 8 over 24 simplify to? Okay, so is this right? Yeah. Any questions? So what about this? X plus 5 over 3 equals 14 over x plus 4. Is this 2 fractions set equal to each other? Yes. So how do I solve it? Cross multiply. I have 3 times 14 equals x plus 5 times x plus 4. Once again, this looks a lot easier to solve than this, but it's from this, isn't it? Okay, so what is 3 times 14? 42? Equals what? What do I have to do on this side? Distribute. X times x. X times 4. 4x. 5 times x. And 5 times 4. That's 20. Now what? Combine like terms. 42 equals x squared plus 9x plus 20. What kind of equation is this now? So a quadratic, right? How do I solve quadratics? What do I need to get it equal to? 0. So how do I do that? Subtract 42 from both sides. 0 equals x squared plus 9x minus Perfect. Minus 22. Now what? Factor. My leading coefficient is 1, so I can say what two numbers multiply to be negative 22 and add to be positive 9. What kind of 11 and what kind of 2? Positive 11, negative 2. Very good. What do I do with each one of these factors? Perfect. X plus 11 equals 0. X minus 2 equals 0. And then I solve each one of them separately, right? So subtract 11 from both sides and then add 2 to both sides. So x equals negative 11 and x equals positive 2. Are they right? We should check, right? Okay, so negative 11 plus 5 is what? Negative 6 over 3. And then I have 14 over negative 11 plus 4. Negative 7. What does negative 6 over 3 simplify to? Negative 2. What does 14 over negative 7 simplify to? Negative 2. So does negative 11 work? Yes. What about 2? 2 plus 5 is 7 over 3 equals 14 over 2 plus 4. 6. Are those equal? How do you get from 7 to 14? Do I multiply by 3 by 2 to get to 6? So are they equal? So does it work? So here I got one answer, I plugged it in and it worked, right? Here I got two answers and plugged them both in and they both work. Is that okay? All right. Everybody okay so far? Okay. Two over 3x plus 1 over 6 equals 4 over 3x. Is this two fractions set equal to each other?
It's two fractions equal to one fraction.
But is it two fractions set equal to each other? No. So can I cross multiply? No, I cannot. Okay? Now, I could add these two together on one side and get that as two fractions set equal to each other and then cross multiply, but what if I knew an easier way? Would you want to know that way? Okay, so this way deals a lot more with what we talked about yesterday. Okay? The first thing we're going to do, well, what's always step one? Don't panic. After we don't panic, we're going to think of a common denominator. We're going to think of a common denominator. Notice I didn't say we are going to find a common denominator for every one of these fractions. We're going to think of a common denominator. If it was this, what would be my common denominator? 3x. That's pretty obvious, right? If it was this, what would be my common denominator? 6, right? But since it's this, what is my common denominator? 6x, yes. Okay, is everybody okay with that? 6x is my common denominator. So I thought of it, I figured it out. My step 3 is going to be multiply each term by the common denominator. Multiply each term by the common denominator. You said it was 6x, right? And I agreed with you, right? So I'm going to multiply each term by the common denominator. Now, technically what's happening is I'm multiplying both sides of the equation by 6x. Because if I do it to both sides, it's fine, right? But then when I distribute my 6x, I end up getting it to each term, right? Okay? Now, look just at this first fraction right here. Is there anything in this first fraction I can simplify? Yes. What is it? The 3 and the 6? I'm okay with that. So if I simplify the 3 and the 6, what's left in the numerator? Or excuse me, denominator? A 1. And what's left in the numerator? A 2. Is there anything else I can simplify? Well, the 2 and the 2 are both in the numerator, so can I simplify that? No. Is there anything else I can simplify? The x, absolutely, right? Because it's factors. There's nothing being added or subtracted to those x's, is there? Everything that's happening is being multiplied to those x's, so those are factors. So that simplifies to a 1, and that simplifies to a 1. So what's left of my first fraction? Which is what? 4. Yeah, 4 over 1, which is just 4, right? Right, just look at the second fraction. What can be simplified in the second fraction? The 6's. And what does 6 over 6 simplify to? 1. So what's left of the second fraction? The x, right? The x is still there, or 1x, so x. And then what's left? What can we do in the third fraction? What can be simplified? The 3 and the 6, so this is a 1 and this is a 2. What else? The x's. That can simplify to 1. So what's left in the last fraction? Which is? Wow, is right. Isn't this doesn't this look like a whole lot easier to solve than this first one? But didn't I get this one from the first one? I thought of a common denominator and multiplied each term by the common denominator, and then I simplified. That's step 4, simplify. And step 5 is what? Yep, solve. What do you mean to do to solve? Subtract 4 from both sides. What does x equal? 4. Is it right? Okay, we should check. 2 over 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 over 6 equals 4 over 3 times 4 is 12. Well, if I'm adding fractions, I need a common denominator, so this would really be 2 over 12, right? 2 over 12 plus 2 over 12 equals 4 over 12?
Yes.
Oh, yes, it does, so this is definitely the answer. Any questions about that? Now, let's be realistic. Are they all that easy? No. Okay? So I'm going to do another one for you that's not that easy, but it's not that difficult, is it? Okay? So here's the next one. 2 over x minus 3 plus 1 over x equals x minus 1 over x minus 3. So 2 over x minus 3 plus 1 over x equals x minus 1 over x minus 3. So step 1, don't panic. Step number 2, so what would the common denominator be if it was this? X minus 3. What would the common denominator be if it was this? X. So since it's this, what would be our common denominator? We worked quite a bit on this yesterday, right? Is this a factor of this? No. So both of these have to be in the common denominator for me to have a true common denominator, right? So what would my common denominator be? X. Okay, so I see where you're going. Okay, I totally see where you're going, and I'm fine with that. But remember, sometimes we don't want to multiply everything out too soon, right? We talked about the last couple of days. We don't want to multiply it out too soon. Okay, so what I heard was x squared minus 3x. Now, I'm thinking you got that by multiplying these two together. Is that correct? Again, I agree with that, but I want you to leave it factored for a second. Okay, I want you to leave it as x times x minus 3. X times x minus 3 and x times x minus 3. And I will show you why right now. I'll show you why I want you to leave it like that right now. Okay? Look at this first fraction. What can simplify? And if you had written x squared minus 3x, you would have to first factor before you could simplify. Does that make sense? So leave it factored so that you can see the factors that simplify. Does that make sense? So in the first fraction, what's left if I simplify the x minus 3? 2x. What simplifies in the second fraction? Which x? Can you be more specific for me? Because we want to make sure we are simplifying the correct x's, right? Okay, so I had a 1 here and a 1 here. I have a 1 here and a 1 here. So what's left in the second fraction? X minus 3. And what happens in this last fraction? X minus 3 and x minus 3. Very good. So what's left here? Can I go ahead and distribute now? Yes, because I'm solving, right? So x squared minus x. Does everybody see where that came from? Now, what kind of problem is this? A quadratic, which means I need to get it equal to 0. Before I do that, I need to combine my like terms, right? So 2x plus x is, so 3x minus 3 equals x squared minus x. Now let's go ahead and get it equal to 0, yes? So subtracting 3x from both sides and adding 3 to both sides, 0 equals x squared minus 4x plus 3. Now what? Factor. What are the two factors? What multiplies to 3 and adds to negative 4? Negative 3 and negative 1. Very good. What do I do with each one of those factors? So x minus 3 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. So add 3 here and add 1 here. So x equals 3 and x equals 1. Are they both right? Okay, we should check. All right, so if I plug 3 into everything up here, I get 2 over 0 plus 1 over 3 equals 2 over 0. Are we ever allowed to divide by 0? Ever? Does 3 work? No, it does not. 2 over negative 2 plus 1 over 1 equals 0 over negative 2. Am I allowed to have a 0 in the numerator? Yes. Right? So 2 over negative 2 is the same as negative 1. 1 over 1 is the same as 1. And 0 over negative 2 is the same as 0. So negative 1 plus 1 equals 0? Yeah. Any questions?